Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In the quaint town of Willow Creek, life unfolded at a deliberate pace. Nestled between rolling hills and thick woodlands, residents took pride in their close-knit community, where everyone knew everyone else. On the surface, it appeared idyllic, a tapestry of white picket fences, children playing in the meadows, and the scent of freshly baked bread wafting through the air. However, beneath the surface of this pastoral paradise lay secrets, lurking in the shadows like phantoms waiting to be unearthed. It was a crisp Thursday morning in late October when the tranquility was shattered. The sun had barely risen, casting a golden hue across the dewy grass, when the shrill wail of sirens sliced through the stillness. Emergency vehicles descended upon Maple Street, drawing curious onlookers from their home. Amidst the frantic activity, a grim scene began to unfold, a crime that would plunge a once peaceful town into chaos. Local police cordoned off the area, while detectives hastily pieced together what they could. An unassuming bungalow sat at the end of the street, its white siding stained with the weight of what had transpired within. It was here that Margaret Kane, a beloved librarian known for her warmth and kindness, had been found lifeless on the floor of her living room. As patrolling officers meticulously scoured for evidence, whispers spread. Friends spoke of the last time they had seen her just a week prior, sharing laughter during the annual pumpkin festival. Her absence now hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of the fragility of life. With each panicked heartbeat, the townspeople braced themselves for a revelation that would shatter their innocent perception. Only they knew of the darkness that had seeped into their midst. The victim. Margaret Kane was a cornerstone of the Willow Creek community. At 48, she epitomized warmth. Gentle eyes crinkled into a smile as she welcomed patrons into the town's library, her second home. Neatly organized shelves overflowed with books she had lovingly curated, each spot illuminated by soft lighting and vibrant plants. Her laughter echoed in the quiet corners where whispers transformed into stories that captivated generations. Little did the townsfolk know, Margaret's life was marked by complexities, hidden beneath layers of affection and dedication. As detectives began their inquiries, they learned that Margaret was a woman of varied relationships. Friends described her as nurturing, often championing local writers, inviting budding authors to workshops, and nurturing creativity in the town. But there were whispers of another life, a private world where companionship had grown increasingly elusive. Her neighbor, Linda, recalled the evenings when the light from Margaret's window flickered late into the night. Yet the only sound that accompanied her was the creak of her empty home. In the weeks leading up to her death, Linda noticed Margaret increasingly isolated. Phone calls, she heard, had waned, and her social calendar dwindled. The pumpkin festival had been a rare reprieve, a chance for connection that Margaret grasped eagerly. Yet, one could not dismiss the small cracks that had formed in Margaret's charming facade. A brief conversation between Linda and another neighbor had hinted at tensions, a troubling estrangement from lifelong friends, and a secret that lingered near the surface. It didn't take long for detectives to uncover the whispers of relationships gone awry, leading them to a possible rift tied to a lingering dispute over a family inheritance. But it was the thud at her doorstep that would shatter her life forever, a culmination of fractures hidden from sight. The community's sense of safety was about to be irrevocably altered, and all eyes were turning toward the unanswered questions surrounding Margaret's tragically untimely end. The crime scene The day was crisp as Detective Sarah Mitchell stepped under the yellow tape that flared out like the wings of a warning bird. Each flap a reminder that darkness had touched Willow Creek. The modest bungalow stood at the end of Maple Street, a shrine to Margaret Kane now marred by grim reality. Sarah closed her eyes for a brief moment, bracing herself for the magnitude of what lay ahead. Each crime scene was a world. A map of a life interrupted. A map of a life interrupted, heavy, pregnant with unsaid farewell. Sunlight streamed through the half-closed blinds, casting angular shadows across the room. Upon the plush living room carpet, Margaret's body lay stark against the faint pattern of floral prints, a jarring contrast to the warmth that had once enveloped her home. The initial examination revealed not only the tragedy of loss, but also the echoes of struggle. Scattered books had been knocked over, their pages ruffled as if searching for hidden secrets. As Sarah crouched beside Margaret, her eyes scanned the scene. The Olofsson family portrait, prominently displayed on the mantel, had toppled during the struggle. The glass cracked as it lay on the ground. The once cheery smiles trapped behind splintered memories. Beyond the remnants of a lovely home, a fine layer of dust in various corners suggested neglect. A photo hinting at how Margaret once valued a tidy space. Now, it captured the hollowness that had seeped into her life, foreshadowing the disarray of her final moments. Around her, forensic technicians meticulously recorded every detail. Evidence bags filled with bits of fabric, strands of hair, and fingerprints began to accumulate, whispering of the intruder who had invaded Margaret's sanctuary. Sarah noted the lack of forced entry. It was a deliberate act, and whoever had taken Margaret's life had done so without breaking the superficial bonds of trust that laced through the community. She rose, her mind racing through the possibilities of someone she knew. A friend turned foe. Fragments of conversations surfaced like scattered leaves in the wind, all too innocent against the backdrop of one woman's last day. The truth was still cloaked in shadow, but as Sarah surveyed the scene, the darkness felt all too aware of the light it had extinguished. The search for clarity had begun, but it was tangled with the threads of connection and investigation that would lead her deeper into the heart of a community unaware of the monster that brewed within its tranquil facade. The early investigation. As dusk began to settle over Willow Creek, the hum of activity at the crime scene gradually faded. Detective Sarah Mitchell returned to the precinct, the weight of Margaret Kane's death heavy on her shoulders. She was determined to piece together this tapestry of sorrow. Armed with little more than a few scattered leads and a haunting sense that the answers awaited her. In familiar places, the precinct buzzed with urgency, officers in a state of focused frenzy as they pored over initial statements. Sarah joined her partner, Detective James Reynolds, who sat at a desk strewn with notes and open files. "What have we got?" she asked, settling into her seat and scanning the array of faces illuminated by flickering fluorescent lights. James leaned back, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Witnesses report seeing a man in a dark hoodie lingering around the neighborhood last week. Some say he knocked on a few doors, but no one recognized him. We've got a sketch artist ready if we can pin down a description." He tapped on the edge of a file, drawing Sarah's eyes to the collection of statements. First-hand accounts revealed the myriad of Margaret's relationships, lovers, friends, and one bitter enemy. A disagreement over a charitable fund meant to restore old town landmarks hinted at a rift with fellow community members. The tension wrapped around the investigation like a noose, growing tighter with every word passed around the precinct. But it was a familiar face among the gathered responses that paused Sarah's breathe name, that whispered through the fabric of Willow Creek, that of Jack Hollis, Margaret's estranged brother. Their relationship had been strained for years, stemming from a family inheritance dispute. "We should talk to him," Sarah suggested, her instincts guiding her toward the wounded soul behind the name. He could hold pieces we're missing, maybe more than we think. With the early hours of the investigation unfolding before her, the threads began to intertwine, drawing her deeper into the tangled web of Margaret's life. For every detail unearthed, new questions surfaced, layered complexities that spiraled from buried emotions, hidden resentments, and the shadowy figure of a stranger brought forth by fear. As she looked at the smiling photograph of her victim, Sarah understood that Margaret's story was far from over. Each answer she sought would lead to another dark corner, demanding that the truth ultimately emerge from beyond the veil of community trust. Her resolve hardened. For Willow Creek, silence would not be an option. The dead ends. A week. Days turned into a week. Detective Sarah Mitchell and her partner, James Reynolds, had chased down every lead provided by a witness eye at every turn, seemed to yield only more frustration and questions yet unanswered. They sat in the precinct's break room, the atmosphere thick with the scent of burnt coffee and the weight of mounting uncertainty. With a sigh, Sarah glanced at the bulletin board cluttered with notes and photographs depicting their victim. "We need to get back to the basics. Maybe we overlooked a detail," she suggested, sifting through her meager notes, still reeling from a series of interviews that had proven fruitless. James rubbed his temples, fatigue etching lines across his brow. "We've spoken to friends, family, and neighbors. The hoodie guy is a dead end. No one can recall anything specific about him. And Jack is anything but forthcoming," he replied, frustration seeping into his voice. The detectives had interviewed Jack Hollis twice, but each time he appeared more like a wall than a man, eager to deflect questions. Citing grief over losing his sister, he shared little about their past, except for a vague mention of embittered arguments over money. "He might be hiding something," Sarah remarked. "But without evidence, we can't just haul him in. We need something solid." Additionally, the forensic evidence collected from Margaret's home yielded nothing more than trace elements of her daily life, no fingerprints from an intruder, no clarity in what had transpired that fateful night. With each dead end, the tension among the townsfolk grew, whispers of rumors feeding distrust. Sarah stood, feeling the weight of her missed opportunities. "We must take another look at Margaret's close friends. Perhaps they can shed light on any disturbances in her life we haven't pieced together yet. There has to be someone who knows." As she stepped out of the break room, a sigh escaped her lips, echoing the contemplation that gripped Willow Creek. A community once vibrant and joyful was now cloaked in an uneasy chill. Each face seemed increasingly shrouded in suspicion, as every resident became a potential ghost. With every dead end the case presented, Sarah felt a flicker of determination ignite somewhere in the heart of this town. Answers awaited, smothered by the fog of silence. The search for truth would not quiet. A break in the case. Just as the branches of the case began to wither under the weight of unanswered questions, an unexpected phone call shifted the tides for Detective Sarah Mitchell. It was late on a Thursday afternoon when the shrill ring of the precinct's telephone broke the quiet hum of the office. Stationed at her desk, Sarah reached for the receiver, curiosity piquing her interest. "Detective Mitchell speaking," she answered, anticipation shadowing her voice. On the other end, a shaky breath preceded the familiar tone of Linda, Margaret's neighbor. I think I saw something I didn't realize at the time," she stammered, urgency broadening the chasms of uncertainty. As Linda recounted her story, the fog surrounding the investigation began to part. It was only 5 nights before Margaret's body was discovered that she had spotted a figure loitering near the library's entrance. The same unmistakable dark hoodie garb that had been mentioned in previous witness statements. This time, however, Linda's memory snapped into focus a glimmer of a face. The stratified details remembered in the wake of tragedy. "I didn't think much of it at first," she admitted, her voice a fragile thread. "But I saw him talking to Maggie. They looked tense. I thought they were just arguing about something trivial, but it felt serious." Quickly, Sarah jotted down notes, her pulse quickening as she learned that the man had left in a dark sedan. And Linda could remember the last 2 digits of the plaid detail that felt as thin as air yet substantial enough to light a spark. "Can you describe him at all?" Sarah pressed, her hope building like a flame. "Not much, just that he was taller than her, maybe in his 30s, and he had a unique tattoo on his wrist. I'm not sure what it was, something with lines or symbols, maybe." With a tantalizing hint of a potential lead, Sarah wasted no time hoarding the details into her mental blueprint. The tattoo could provide a connection to the stranger, a pathway to unlocking more pieces of the puzzle that Margaret's life had become. As Sarah ended the call, she glanced at James, who had witnessed her fervor. "We've got a new lead." Energy grew in the precinct, batting against the sleeping shadows of uncertainty. With renewed determination, they began searching databases for cars matching the description, eager to shed light on the dark forms that had melted into the night. For the first time in days, the air felt crackling with possibility. The case was awakening, ready to reveal the secrets that lay buried beneath layers of miscommunication and silence. Willow Creek would not be left in the dark for long. The suspect waited. The unspoken tension crackled in the air as Detective Sarah Mitchell and her partner, James Reynolds, gathered in the precinct's conference room. Their spirits lifted by the new lead. They had traced the license plate provided by Linda back to a man named Ethan Corsettia, name that rang through the confines of Willow Creek's social circles, albeit with a sense of notoriety. Ethan was known for his unassuming charm, often mingling at local events and becoming acquainted with a variety of residents. Yet, there lingered an undercurrent of unease. Whispers painted him as someone who treaded the fine line between charismatic and erratic. Most troubling was a history of volatile relationships, particularly with women, often culminating in misunderstandings that sent tongues wagging. The detectives wasted no time tracking him down. By the time night cloaked the town in darkness, a single knock on his door echoed through the humid air of early evening. A moment of silence followed, breath held, time suspended before the door creaked open, revealing a disheveled figure framed by the light behind him. "Ethan Corsetti?" Sarah inquired, stepping forward, badge in hand. When he nodded, the calculated casualness he wore began to slip, revealing an uneasiness creeping into his demeanor. "We have some questions regarding your relationship with Margaret Kane," James continued, assessing Ethan's body language, searching for any signs of guilt or denial. For a moment, Ethan seemed to hesitate, stepping back to glance behind him as if contemplating an escape. "I hardly know her. We spoke a few times at the library about books, that's it," he stammered. But the urgency in his tone felt too hollow. Doubt draped itself over any assurance Sarah could muster as his story began to unravel under scrutiny. "Linda witnessed a confrontation outside the library, you two arguing less than a week before her death," Sarah pressed, refusing to let him sidestep their inquiry. Ethan's eyes tightened, a flash of defensiveness crossing his face. "Yeah, I approached her, but only about some funds. I thought were mine. She claimed they were for the Historical Society. I told her she was wrong," he countered, the protests matching the fear that bubbled beneath the surface. But Sarah seized on the detail of his tattoo, the unique markings Linda had described. "And the tattoo, Ethan? The one on your wrist?" A flicker of panic illuminated his features as he instinctively pulled back his sleeve. "It doesn't mean anything," he asserted too quickly. But the truth was palpable within the fabric of their confrontation. As they continued delving into the murky web of Ethan's associations with Margaret, each answer revealed further layers of turmoil. His connections to the town's dark underbelly opened a doorway, a grotesque vista of jealousy and resentment that simmered just below the surface of civility. With every word exchanged, Sarah felt the threads tighten around the man who had once been a mere figure in the background of Willow Creek. Now, the potential suspect lurked in the flickering shadows, gripping the investigation with both hands. As Ethan danced on the edge of suspicion, the answers they sought slipped further from reach, hiding in corners of his past that were desperate to remain buried. The trial. The courtroom was a somber venue for the unveiling of secrets long shrouded in darkness. As citizens of Willow Creek filled the wooden benches, their faces reflected a tapestry of emotions: grief, anger, and curiosity converged in a charged atmosphere. With the trial of Ethan Corsetti underway, the small town braced itself to confront the heartbreak that had shattered their idyllic existence. Detective Sarah Mitchell sat among the spectators, a quiet anchor amidst the chaos that unfolded before her. The shine of polished wood and the stern gaze of the judge set the stage for an expected show of justice. As the bailiff called the court to order, a palpable tension enveloped the space, amplifying the whispers that danced through the aisles. Ethan, now dressed in a crisp suit, wore an expression of feigned confidence. However, the flicker of anxiety in his eyes betrayed his efforts to mask his unraveling facade. His defense attorney, a seasoned professional with a reputation for turning cases in his favor, argued vehemently that the evidence against Ethan was circumstantial at best. No incriminating fingerprints, no forensic evidence tying him to a murder scene, the attorney asserted, voice smooth as silk. The prosecution countered, wielding their strongest weapon, Linda's eyewitness account. Her voice trembled as she described the night she witnessed Ethan arguing with Margaret outside the library. Her testimony painting a picture of escalating tension just days before her murder. There was something in his eyes, she recalled. Her words hanging heavy in the air, every line drawing the community deeper into disbelief. Throughout the trial, the courtroom became a battleground over which the memories of Margaret Kane clashed with the evolving narrative of Ethan Corsetti's character. Friends and acquaintances took the stand, recounting their interactions with both Margaret and Ethan, inching the jury closer toward a decision shrouded in uncertainty. Sarah listened intently, piecing together the fragmented portrait of the victim with the ominous sketch of the man accused. The shadow of a life lost loomed over the proceedings like a specter, demanding closure that resonated beyond the boundaries of the law. As days turned into agonizing weeks, the jury deliberated, the weight of their responsibility echoing in the stillness of the courtroom. Ethereal tensions crackled in the silence, each tick of the clock amplifying the desperation for justice that coursed through the hearts of the townsfolk. Finally, the moment arrived, an ultimatum reached. As the jury filed back in, breath caught in throats, the foreman's voice sliced through the electric tension. We find the defendant, Ethan Corsetti, guilty of second-degree murder. The room erupted into a cacophony of disbelief, tears streaming down faces, a symphony of relief and sorrow entwined. As Ethan was led away, his expression shifted, angry resignation caught in the snare of his reality. A sense of finality wrapped around Sarah, a bittersweet victory ensnared in the complexity of humanity. Though justice had been served in the eyes of the law, it could not restore the vibrancy of Margaret's laughter or mend the hearts of those who mourned her loss. In the echo of the gavel, Sarah realized the journey was far from over. The shadows of Willow Creek clung tightly to their secret. Margaret's memory would forever ripple through time, a haunting reminder that even among the most tranquil waters, the currents ran dark and deep. The aftermath. In the weeks following the verdict, a quiet unrest settled over Willow Creek, like fog creeping through the familiar streets. Ethan Corsetti's conviction had brought a sense of closure, but had left raw wounds exposed, revealing the fragility that lay hidden within the community. With each sunrise, the shadows of grief intertwined with subtle chandisa, newfound tension in greetings, a hesitance that lingered in conversation. Detective Sarah Mitchell walked through the town's park one misty morning, the autumn sun struggling to penetrate the heavy clouds above. The park, once a vibrant tapestry of laughter and play, held an air of somber reflection. Children played on the swings, their joyous shrieks echoing uncomfortably against the backdrop of somber reminder signs, urging kindness, flyers with Margaret's smiling face that still adorned light posts, now faded and peeling. As Sarah observed the town she had dedicated herself to protecting, she couldn't help but feel a profound sense of loss. Margaret's absence echoed through her thoughts, reverberating against the reality of her death. Conversations had gone quiet at the library, the once bustling space reduced to whispers and half-hearted exchanges among those who still ventured inside. The weight of a tragedy was palpable, an undercurrent that pulsed through the very fabric of Willow Creek. Yet, amidst the sorrow, a collective resolve began to emerge. Friends and supporters of Margaret formed a committee dedicated to her memory, determined to launch community initiatives aimed at speaking out against domestic violence and strengthening bonds within neighborhoods. They organized candlelight vigils and discussions, a movement ignited from the ashes of loss, a veritable phoenix that vowed to rise above despair. As Sarah attended one of these gatherings, Standing among familiar faces, something sparked within her, a sense of purpose rising to the surface again. The conversations that flowed were honest and raw. Emotions spilled into the open space, like raindrops finding parched earth, breaking barriers that had existed before. Each story shared resonated like an unbroken hymn of resilience, a chorus woven from connections and shared experiences. In those moments, the detectives who had worked tirelessly on the case became more than enforcers of the law. They became advocates for change. Sarah had transformed her grief into action, participating in creating outreach programs, helping raise awareness, and sharing Margaret's story as a catalyst for change. But unwinding the blanket of mourning wasn't simple. Rumors still hung in the air, feeding uncertainty and speculation. There were whispers of other unsolved cases beneath the surface. Some citizens questioned whether justice had truly been served. Speculation echoed through the town like ghostly footsteps, a reminder that while one chapter had closed, others remained unwritten. As Sarah looked around at the community gathering in solidarity, she felt a flicker of hope. With each light flickering in remembrance, a vision took shape, a town willing to confront its fears head-on, crafting a future threaded not only with memories but with renewed determination to heal. Margaret's spirit lingered on, not as a shadow, but as a guiding light, illuminating the path toward reflection and growth. In Willow Creek, the aftermath of tragedy began to birth a new legation that insisted on honoring the past while forging a more profound sense of unity for the future. Reflection. As the sun began to set over Willow Creek, painting the sky in deep shades of orange and purple, Detective Sarah Mitchell found herself standing at the edge of the serene lake where she had first come to know the town's beauty. The tranquil water mirrored the vibrant hues above, but beneath the surface lay hidden depths, much like the duality of life in the community she had sworn to protect. The echoes of the past demanded space in her thoughts. Moments of joy mingled with those steeped in sorrow and loss. Margaret Kane's laughter, the warmth of her spirit, and the impact of her absence had woven through the fabric of Sarah's life and the lives of those who had loved her. Each memory played like a film reel before her, interspersed with the realities of grief. There was beauty in the shared testimony of loss, a powerful testament to the connections that endured, even amidst darkness. Sarah reflected on the tangible changes that had emerged in Willow Creek since the trial. People were no longer hesitant to speak out. The community had rallied together, moving forward with purpose and clarity. Through the grief, they forged an unwritten commitment to safeguarding one another, complying with the lessons learned from their own tragedy. Each soul who attended the vigils or participated in community outreach made it clear silence was no longer an option. Yet, in those quiet moments beside the water, Sarah felt an insatiable yearning to ensure that no future victim of violence would fall into the shadows, overlooked and forgotten. Margaret's story was a somber reminder that while justice had been served, the work to prevent such tragedies was ongoing. With a newfound resolve, she committed to being the voice for those who couldn't speak for themselves, helping to shape a future rooted in courage, understanding, and unwavering support. As she admired the shimmering lake, Sarah felt the promise of transformation. It was a threshold into a new dawn, a ripple of hope, unwavering against the currents of uncertainty, grounding her in purpose. In Willow Creek, the quest for justice had evolved into a quest for a better tomorrow, and Sarah knew that together, they could illuminate the darkness with their shared courage and strength.